Good afternoon. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center, and I'm not 100% today, so I apologize for probably the nasal voice that you're hearing. I have been sick the last week, but I'm on the road to recovery, as they say. I'm excited that so many of you are joining us for today's advisor forum that's being co-sponsored by the Transfer Advising Committee on campus through the Looking Glass, the Missouri State Transfer Experience. So I'm really excited that this forum today is being presented from a student's lens. So we all have a way to better understand what our transfer students experience when they come to the university. Just two announcements before I turn it over to Nick Beatty, who is a member of the Transfer Advising Committee, who will be facilitating today's advisor forum. First, I want to mention that we do have another advisor forum on Wednesday, February 28th. This is a seated advisor forum in the Student Union, room 314. And Kimmy Walker, an assistant director in the McQuarrie College of Health and Human Services Student Success and Advisement Center, will be presenting on Exploring Ethical Frameworks for Advising Part 2. I just want to make sure everyone knows that although it's part 2, there was a session in the fall semester that we did. Kimmy has made sure that even if you were unable to attend the session in the fall semester, you can still attend this session in the spring semester, and you will not have missed out on anything and feel like you're lost in part 2. So she will make sure that everyone is ready for that advisor forum on Wednesday from 12 to 1 in PSU 314. Next, I wanted to mention that the Kathy J. Davis Master Advisor Reception is coming up in a few weeks. It will be on Tuesday, March 19th from 4 to 5 p.m. in the Plaster Student Union Club. We will soon be announcing the Excellence in Advising Award winners for 2024. That should be out within the next probably 1 to 2 weeks. So please make sure to, if possible, attend the reception. It's a great way not only to celebrate our Excellence in Advising Award winners, but also an opportunity to celebrate each other and how we all play such an important role in academic advising, as well as retention and the success of our students here at the university. So again, the reception will be Tuesday, March 19th from 4 to 5. For those of you who may not have attended in the past, there will be appetizers, desserts, just an opportunity to gather, to celebrate each other, and then the formal awards presentation usually starts around 4:30. So I hope all of you can attend the Master Advisor reception. With that being said, again, as a reminder, for those of you who are just entering the room, please make sure that you enter your name and your department in the chat feature if you wish to receive Master Advisor credit for today's session. This advisor forum is being recorded and will be posted on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel. Probably within the next week. So if you do know of someone in your area who is unable to attend the forum today and would like to, or who could benefit from watching the forum at a later date, please let them know about the Mo State Advising YouTube channel and that those individuals can still receive Master Advisor credit by entering a custom submission on the advisor certification database, which can be found on the Academic Advising and Transfer Center webpage. So with all of that, I am now going to turn it over to Nick Beatty. Nick is a professor and an advisor in the political science department. He is also a member of the Transfer Advising Committee on campus, representing RCASH, and he will be facilitating today's advisor forum. Nick?
All right, thank you, Ross. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about the transfer experience from the student's perspective, which I think is pretty important. I know when I first started doing transfer advising, I was not familiar with all the steps that had to be taken and the challenges that those students met. So we're going to go in chronological order for the transfer process. We'll start off with Bart Tibbs talking about the communication students first receive and then the transfer process. Bart Tibbs is the Assistant Director of Admissions with a focus on transfer recruitment. Bart's been here for 20 years. I think it's just a great place to work here. He's had experience in residence hall director, admissions counselor, coordinator of freshman recruitment, and his twin daughters also attended MSU and recently graduated. And I also have news here that he likes good dad jokes, and cake donuts with white icing are his favorites. So if we need more information, I'll let you guys know, but I'll hand it over to Bart.
Thank you. And actually, that's cake donuts with white frosting and sprinkles. Don't forget the sprinkles. Well, definitely glad to be here today, and hopefully my voice will hold out. Had some difficulties with sinuses over the weekend, but we're here and very happy to talk with you about what we send out. How do we recruit our prospective transfer students? So I'll talk a bit about the admissions recruitment, our communications that we do, even touch base on transfer orientation, and maybe a few other little snippets if time allows. So when we, how do we go out and recruit students basically through the admissions office? We have what are called predominantly our transfer college fairs. This is where myself, maybe Campbell, or others from the Academic Advisement Transfer Center will go out to a 2-year college, because 4-year colleges won't let us on their campus. Go figure. So we go to these 2-year colleges, and not only in Missouri, we do a little bit into Oklahoma, a little bit into Arkansas, majority of the time. But we will go set up shop. We'll table there with many other colleges, and we're available there to talk with those prospective students about Missouri State, kind of personalize it there for them. And I've also had other advisors outside of the AATC who've attended some of these programs with me. So if you have a special relationship with a community college, and there might be an opportunity for you to travel with us if you'd like. Usually day trips only for my travelers with me. We also have been providing opportunities for students to get to know Missouri State online. We do what's called a Transfer Tuesday webinar. We'll do about 6 of those the course of the semester, and we'll do them on Tuesdays. Well, what I do is myself and one of my colleagues, and usually a grad assistant, will be available, and we will do a presentation for these students, parents, whomever want to hear more about our programs. We'll do that and have a question and answer period on there too. We usually will do it in the afternoon, and we get pretty well attendance. You could have anywhere from 5 to 50 people on those particular webinars. So it's been very useful for us and very beneficial, because not every student can travel to Missouri State. But for those who can travel, we also do what's called the transfer presentation and tours. I know it's not a real creative name, but it gets the point across, right? But we'll do these on select Fridays. And I think this semester I'm doing 3. And basically, students will come to campus, and we'll do our transfer admissions presentation. Myself and a few others will take them over to lunch, so they get that opportunity. And then we do a tour of campus. We have a very succinct timeline for them, because we know that they're very busy with classes, sometimes with jobs, sometimes with families. So we do try to make that easy. And we also encourage them to meet with you while they're here on campus, if they can make that work. And then we are doing this semester our transfer VIP days. So I am very happy that each of our colleges is sponsoring a transfer VIP day. And so myself and one of our liaisons from the admissions counselors with a specific college are working with those colleges to organize an event. So a few of the things that go on at a VIP day, we'll get them into that specific building. They usually get a chance to talk with a dean, maybe an assistant dean or someone from that college. They get a chance to many times interact with some of the faculty members, some of the students in those programs, ideally transfer students who've gone through the process. And then we will provide lunch and tours of campus too. Ideally, those students will also have an opportunity to meet with an advisor while they're here. And, you know, especially those ones at the beginning of the semester, and this month and early next month, you know, think of it this way: you get a chance to get those students now instead of having that bottleneck, which always comes a little bit later in that cycle for our advisors. So we're happy to be able to offer that. Other things that we do a lot with our MSU West Plains campus. I will go down there each semester, do some tabling, also get a chance to talk with some of their GEP classes with that. And normally in the springtime, Cindy Bridges, who is there, organizes basically an opportunity like this to talk with advisors on their campus. So it's a good touch base point for us. And they also bring students to some of our programs. So I always look forward to having our West Plains students on here with that. And of course, we'll do interactions with the OTC campus, just 1.2 miles north of us. We do a lot there. We just recently had the MSU at OTC Day, and I know several people who are on this webinar attended that. So thank you again publicly for that. But basically, it's a roadshow. We take each of our college reps, we'll take some organization and department reps and go to OTC, set up shop, feed everybody pizza, and tell them all about the wonderfulness of us, okay, and the opportunities that they have when they come to Missouri State. Other things that we do, we attend the OTC's picnics each year. And of course, we're fortunate that Donna is on that campus the majority of the time too. So as we all know, as a resource there. We also get chances to go inside the classes and such. Now, something that many people don't know is that we have basically an MSU OTC enrollment group. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. That's how we, keep our tuition down on that electric bill for our students. But with that OTC MSU enrollment group, we have people in our enrollment services get together: financial aid, admissions, registrar's office, and then we meet with our counterparts at OTC. We talk about what can we do better together. How do we organize and make that transition from OTC more smooth than maybe what it is now? Troubleshooting, and also coming up with some good ideas there too. So a very important process for us with our biggest feeder school. With that. And I would be remiss too, because I know she's on here. One of the things that one of your colleagues does, Angela Plank, does work with our OTC faculty to bring some of their biology students to our campus. So what it's doing is forcing those, I guess it is. It's forcing those students to come to our campus, find out how to get to a building, and be more familiarized with our campus. And then they get a lot of really good information about coming to a four-year university that they can use in their search in many places. And of course, our office gets invited to talk shop with them too. So very appreciative of that. But those are some things that people across our campus are doing. So I do want to kind of switch gears from the admissions recruitment point of view to more of an admissions communication. And when we communicate with students, we look at two different cohorts. First are our inquiry students. It just means that they're not admitted. And our second section would be admitted students. So in our communications for inquiry students, I do want to share one of those with you just to give you an idea. We use a system called Slate, which is it's an organizational tool, helps us to communicate much more efficiently and effectively with students. We have probably literally hundreds of emails that have been created through our office and assistance with other offices to reach out to students wherever they are in that process of coming to Missouri State. Sometimes they don't know about Missouri State. Maybe we've got their name, but we're pushing it out there for those students to make connections with us. And this first one I'm going to show is for an inquiry student. Ooh, I clicked on that. Okay, it worked a while ago. We're just going to try it out. Yeah, we're still trying. I'm clicking. Oh, the share button would be handy. And hopefully, are we seeing you're deciding where you'll continue? Somebody give me a nod. Otherwise, I don't know what you're looking. Okay. with this particular communication piece, and I've got it over here, so I'm gonna look in this area. You can see it's sent from admissions office, so they know exactly who it's coming in from, and the recipient is going to be on here too. We'll give, of course, the basics there. We do like to be able to input their names in many of these emails too. But this one, this is going to a person who's never been to Missouri State, maybe he's just heard of us or not heard of us, but we're telling them some basic information. And we've learned that you don't want to send an email out with a page full of materials. Okay, they're not going to read it. And so we try to be as succinct as we can to get our point across. But we do try to push out information that transfer students are going to find very important. And of course, you can see these particular links embedded of things that students are going to be having those questions about. And then that call to action on there. And usually when this email goes out, like my picture might be on it and communications, my contact information would be on that too. The next one I want to show you, do we see something different now? Okay, so since I am a liaison with the College of Agriculture, I opted to use one of the pieces that we send out to students. Now, this is going to a student who's indicated to us, hey, I'm thinking about going into agriculture. So with that, that student gets that email and this particular one coming through, and it's going to show them or provide opportunities for information on the College of Agriculture. And so they'll get to see all that. Of course, you see those hyperlinks and such too. And then access to their websites. So again, we're trying to embed as much information as we can succinctly to help bring that student on board with Missouri State. The other one, next sections I want to point out are going to be for students who have been admitted to the university. So you'll see a little bit of a change here. But with these admitted students, and as you can tell, all of our transfers are happy. Okay, every picture we've taken, they look just like that. It's a great place to be. But we have all the basic information again, and even got a little emoji up here telling how happy Missouri State is. But one of the things I want you to take from this particular email is it's talking about big changes. Excited, but still nervous. And just because a transfer student has experience doesn't mean they're not really nervous about coming to Missouri State. For some of our students, Missouri State's bigger than their hometown. And so please keep that in mind as you're meeting with these prospective students or admitted students, that just because even if they're from OTC and they may have been by campus, don't take it for granted. They still get scared too. So that's one of those nice things with Angela's program, getting them to campus kind of acclimates them a little bit, shows that they can do it. Parking is not that scary once you get here. But it does give them some of the basic information. You'll see I pushed in here the academic advisor. So they've got access to that full list of advisors on our website that Campbell keeps updated with that. Clubs and organizations, as Dr. Benson will go over a little bit later in the program. And then even fun stuff. Again, just a synopsis of it and with it. The next one I want to show you, again, this is just a sampling of about probably 40 of these emails or more that we have. We talk about transfer orientation. So I've got just a real quick one here that we'll send to students once they've been admitted, if they've not got that orientation completed. Person preferred. That means when on their application, they told us, my name is Franklin, but I want to go by Frankie. Well, this will say Frankie or right in there, and just personalizing as best we can. Even though they get this information in an email once they've been admitted, we'll also send it in a hard copy and of the admitted transfer student checklist that's on there. But we do push this information as much as we can for those students. And the final one I want to show you is, again, showing the importance that you who are on this webinar, who are advisors, that we do try to, again, provide that information as quickly as possible to them. And one of the big changes that Ross and his office was able to help us with was to insert transfer academic advisors contact information within our emails that we initially send out. That used to not, it was very difficult, but it was made. And that's why if you're going to be changing from an advisor to someone else for transfer students, make sure that gets updated on that webpage, because this is how we access that. Just a public service announcement. Okay. But it does, again, show them how to connect, how to even information on registering for classes and such as that. Some basic stuff that's on there. And I think that is it. I'll check. Yes, that was it for that. So I'm going to stop sharing at that moment. But again, lots of information that's out there. And some of it is specific to colleges. So we do have that. You saw the College of Ags, but we've got stuff for each college that's out there too. I've got very talented staff in our office from Ty McCoy, Jim Welch, and Katie McWilliams, who do make that all possible with that. So one of our slides was showing about transfer orientation. So I do want to touch base with that and let you know that that orientation takes a student about an hour to complete. And one of the things that we have to say all the time is please do not use Safari to access that. We know people try to do it on their phones. It's not real phone friendly. It's best to do it on a PC if they can. They need to use. And the reason I'm telling you this kind of this minute detail is because they may ask you, okay, that orientation, because you guys are building those relationships. But that orientation has best to be used by Chrome or Firefox for the best experience, most user friendly. Now, when a student can access that orientation, it's basically when the classes of the semester start before they're going to get here. So I got students coming in the fall. Okay, so they were able to access that transfer orientation the first day of classes or that first week of classes. Just because it's January 8th and there's a new semester, it's a new year starting in this month, they can't access it till classes start here. Okay, and some of you, you know, when you're talking with students and they try to access their registration information page and it auto populates maybe to the wrong semester. And I'm sure you've talked to them again, change it, look for the correct semester. Sometimes the same thing for that transfer orientation. If they're trying to get access to it through that page, the registration information status, I have a hard time remembering what that is, even though I use it every day. But that status page, that I don't want them accessing our orientation through that, but there's a link. They need to go through the process that we give them and tell them and provide that. This orientation is only for students who are attending classes on campus. So if I'm an online student only, I don't go through this orientation, okay? And we do provide learning opportunities or short little quizzes throughout the orientation just to help them reinforce, keep that information that we think is pertinent to for them, keep it in their minds. Because at the very end of the orientation, there's an official quiz or test, I guess, their first Missouri State test. And they do have to get an 80% on that or higher for that hold on their account to be lifted, okay? If they don't pass that test, they're going to retake that test. So, and I do remind them, so please tell faculty, I tell these students, this is the only time that's ever going to happen. They're going to retake that test till they pass. So, let's see. We are now in the process of doing some updates on that video orientation. And so that's why I'm not giving you links or anything to that at this time. But again, we're making those updates. But here are a few things, just a sampling of things that we cover within that orientation. We talk to them about how to access their credit evaluation, show them the process of getting there and the importance of looking at that before they meet with you. Okay? We talk and mention reverse transfer for those students that might be pertinent for them with that. And of course, we talk about or have slides on costs and financial aid that they have access to. Give a little bit more in-depth on that. And I mentioned a little bit earlier on activities and organizations, we have a nice spot there for student engagement. Again, Tara will be pushing on that and expanding upon that and those opportunities a little bit later. Campus rec, we mentioned on that, and of course, residence life and services. I think for transfer students, the majority of them don't live on campus, but we have some great opportunities for them to live on campus. And one of the living and learning communities is basically a floor that's ideally reserved only for transfer students. So they all can have something in common with everyone on that floor. Now, they don't have to live there because they're a transfer student. They get the option to doing that. And next year, for those of you who have ever been to Kentwood Hall, that was going to be reopening, and we'll have our floor will be in that building this next year. So I'm looking forward to that. It's my favorite building. Just for your information, Bart's favorite building, Kentwood Hall. We talk about bookstores and dining options. We know that students want to get maybe a meal plan, they can do that. So they never have to wash dishes while they're going to college if they don't want to. And then ultimately, there's a checklist there to complete. Multiple items are on it to help them again with that transition to Missouri State, just to get them a view of some of the resources that we have to offer for that. Let's see. I know that little time check. I got a couple little points I want to point out. Do I still have time for this? Okay. Good. You know that timer? I forgot to set it. I forgot to push the button. But anytime I get the chance to talk with academic advisors, I do try to point out, I know, and our office knows, you are very important. And I hope you know that you're important in the recruitment of students and also in that retention aspect of students too. We have students who will come and want to talk with you before they're admitted. So you won't have basic information that we can provide, evaluation of credit. Please give them your best assistance that you can, because it is definitely appreciated, because we do encourage those students to check into how their classes are going to transfer. If they want to talk with an advisor specifically, we want them to get them in contact with you. We know that you can help those transfer students make a connection to our campus. I can never, I think, emphasize that enough, how important connections are. Even one, it's a start. And so we really push together and try to encapsulate that with those connections that you might have. And, I guess finally, please reassure those students that, one, that they can be successful in a new environment. It is scary. And so just try to ease those fears too. And the beauty of my interactions with many of you, I know that you're doing that already, but I just want to make sure that you understand, people on the outside of advising know that, and that we all work together. That's what I have got. If there's anything that I needed to expand upon, I'm always happy to do so. And I guess back to Nick.
Okay, all right. Bart, thanks a lot for that information. So at this point in the process, then students should probably be ready to talk to their advisors and of course, discuss the transfer credit reevaluations. That's what Ben is going to talk about. Ben Metzger is the Associate Director of Admissions Operations and Systems. He has worked in the admissions office at Missouri State since he was a student here. His daily work involves everything from connected with making decisions for undergraduate applications for admission. He also occasionally works with other offices on campus to help solve problems regarding student data and student applications. And the things he loves most is solving problems on his job in the spare time. He likes to hike anywhere in the Ozarks. And I just got information that his favorite donut is up for debate, but blueberry is in the front running for that. So Ben, without further ado, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks everybody for your time today. Thank you for having me here to talk at this forum. Like they said, my topic is going to be the TCRP, or Transfer Credit Reevaluation and Pre-Approval System. Just so you know, I'm here today with Lori day. She works in my office. I actually think Lori is the absolute expert at the university on this system. I'm doing this presentation, but if there are any questions, she might jump in to answer them because she knows this system, I think, better than anybody at the university. Like they said, my name is Ben Metzger. I'm one of the associate directors in the Office of Admissions. The area that I supervise works with collecting applications, collecting documents, so specifically transcripts, processing those transcripts, making decisions for students. We make decisions for all types of undergraduate students, freshmen, transfer, readmit, and our evaluators who make those decisions on students when they make an admission decision. If they're able to admit the student, when they make an admission decision for students, they evaluate that student's transfer credit. Sometimes though, the students want to have that credit changed or reviewed, and that's what this process is for. That's what this process is about. So, oops. This presentation is going to do a quick introduction to TCRP. Then we're going to do an actual system walkthrough with screenshots that is from what a student would see as they go through this process. Then we're going to talk about the process when a request is received, and then the process once a decision is made. So the TCRP system is, and I promise I won't just be reading off slides, but I am going to read this, is a system where students may request a change to an evaluation of already evaluated coursework. Students may also get pre-approval of transfer courses they'll be taking in the future. So in the first instance, the student has taken classes, they've sent us that transcript and they want a change made, that's that. In the next instance, a student is planning to take a class in the future and they want to know how that class is going to transfer to Missouri State. It's worth pointing out at this point that this system is intended to go through an upgrade, hopefully this semester. It does need an upgrade, and I'm grateful for the people that are working on trying to make that happen. Most of the improvements are really going to be behind the scenes. They're going to be technical improvements. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change in the interaction that students or approvers have with this system. However, it will probably be a new look, but I think the fields, which is what we're really going to be talking about today, what a student interacts with, those should remain almost entirely the same. The intention is, if things go according to plan, that this change would happen sometime this semester. Today, I'm going to focus on the system as it is right now. When a student wants to interact with the TCRP system, they may have a conversation with you. Their next step is actually going to be to go to My Missouri State, and they are going to go to a card that anyone who has transfer credit should have. That's a transfer resources card. I have transfer credit here at Missouri State. I have this card. Any transfer student should have this card available to them. The two links that the student has and that would be interacting with for this process would be the transfer credit pre-approval link in the center of the card, or the transfer credit reevaluation link. Our example today is going to be going through the reevaluation process. So we're going to follow a sample student as they would go through that process. But this, the idea of the TCRP system would go through, would cover both of those. If they click on that link for transfer credit reevaluation, the first screen that they're going to see is a screen where they will select what institution, what transfer credit institution they want to interact with in this process. If a student has multiple transfer credit or institutions from which they receive transfer credit, they would have multiple institutions in the drop-down menu at the bottom of this screenshot. Obviously, they're also going to see their name and some information identifying them on this screen. It's really simple. Most of the screens we look at are going to be very simple. They're going to have one or two things the student interacts with and then hits continue to continue through this process. We've got 8 screens we're going to go through today. So the student's going to pick the school for whose transfer credit they want to try and go make move through this process. Once they do that and they hit continue, they're going to see a list of all the transfer courses from that institution. This is just a screen snip from what that's part of what that screen would look like. That screen is actually going to list all of the courses from that institution they selected. At this point, it's going to show them the course as it came from, or the course from that institution, and then how it arrived at Missouri State, or how it transferred to Missouri State. At this point, they will click the radio button to select the course that they want to have reevaluated. The next screen is really just listing and showing them this is the course that you've selected and that you want to have move through this process. And they'll hit continue. The next screen is where they start to provide information to be evaluated in this process. Here, they're asked to provide a course description. It's worth noting most colleges and universities, just like Missouri State, provide course descriptions on their website. That's what the student is really expected to provide here. If they can get that course description off the other institution's website, that's what they'll put in here. Once again, this is the course description from the other institution, not the Missouri State course description. Then they'll continue. Next, the student is given the option to provide a syllabus for that specific course. This page notes, if the course syllabus is available online, enter the URL in this space. They can also just cut and paste the content. If the syllabus is available in a PDF format that can't be copied, they'll be given instructions at the end of this process on how they can email that information on. This is optional, as we'll talk a little bit later in the process. It could be, if it's not provided, it might be requested by the approver in the future. It is an option because it's not always possible to quickly or easily get a syllabus for a course. If the student has it, I'd recommend they include it. The next page is a little more complicated. At this point, students have 3 options. The first option, students can request the course to be evaluated to the following Missouri State course. This is the simplest option. It's just kind of a 1-for-1 equivalency. They want to change this. This is the option that we're going to follow through this process in our example, but I'll go ahead and I'll talk about the other 2 options. If the student believes that the course doesn't equal a specific Missouri State course, but they feel that it meets the spirit of a general education section, for lack of a better way of putting it, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. If they feel like it meets the spirit of a general education section, they can, instead of requesting that the course come to Missouri State as a specific MSU course, they can request that it be evaluated as meeting part of a general education requirement, or equaling a general education requirement. I'm trying to say that carefully. I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. The next option is my undergraduate request involves evaluating 2 or more courses to 1 Missouri State course. And then the other option, 2 or more transfer courses to 1 Missouri State course. This is where things get complicated. I'm not going to follow that through the process, but that is an option. Students can try and talk about multiple transfer courses being 1 Missouri State course, or 1 course equaling multiple Missouri State courses. In that case, I'd really recommend that the student provide as much information about all of the courses in their entire situation as possible. Once again, we're going to follow the first option through this system, or through this example. The next option for the student is that they will pick the course and the course number here at Missouri State that they want to have their course reevaluated toward. Next, the student can provide any other information that they want to provide with this request. They can talk about their situation. They can point out other courses that they've taken that perhaps they want the approver to be aware of as the approver's reviewing this request. I'd recommend the student provide whatever information they think would advocate for themselves as they go through this process. That is step 8. When the student hits submit, they've submitted their reevaluation request. So what happens once that's done? At that point, the request is sent to the approvers. A quick aside on who are approvers. Approvers generally represent academic departments. They may be a department head, or they may be someone, a delegate of the department head who reviews the requests. They receive the request, and they have several different options, 4 options really. An approver may approve the request for all students. So this would change the transfer equivalency guide. This is not retroactive. It's only for future transfer credit, but from that point forward, any student who brought that course to Missouri State would get this, this new equivalency. Obviously, it would also be in effect for this specific student. The next option is an approver may approve it for only the specific student. I actually saw this example recently. So for example, perhaps the student has taken a course in addition to the requested reevaluation, and that factors into the approver's decision. It's approved for only that student, only that one time. An approver may also ask for more information. Maybe the student wasn't or did not provide the syllabus, and the approver wants to see that syllabus prior to making a decision. That's the most common option. Finally, an approver may also deny the request. So what happens after an approver has reviewed the request and made one of those decisions? First, a notification of the approval will appear on the advising notes. The student will be able to see it on the advising notes. The Office of Admissions, my office, is also notified of the approver's decision. We're notified of that because we then need to take action on that approval. Until we take action on the approval, it won't actually show up as changed, if applicable, in the transfer equivalency guide or on the student's record itself. Unfortunately, as I understand it, the system's not able to notify the academic advisor of that change, but it would be visible on the student's advising notes. If the request was approved for only the student, the Office of Admissions changes the individual student's records. If the request was approved for all students, our office changes the student's record and the transfer equivalency guide for all evaluations from that point forward. It's worth pointing out that both our office and the approvers are only looking at the transfer credit reevaluation and pre-approval system during regular university hours. Our office checks the system 2 to 3 times per week on business days. We don't check it during holidays, as you can imagine. That can sometimes slow down responses in the system. But we do check it 2 to 3 times per week to see the responses from the approvers and then proceed with changes if that's what the approver has decided. Go Bears. Thanks for your time.
All right, thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. It's good information. And of course, getting the transfer students through the admission process is important. Of course, the story does not end there. You know, trying to get them engaged in the community and connected to other students is pretty important. So that's what Tara is going to be talking about. Tara Benson is the Associate Director of the Placer Student Union, Director of Student Engagement. As the director, Tara works with her team to provide opportunities for students to connect outside the classroom. She enjoys spending time serving the community, watching movies, doing jazzercise, walking her dog, Sylvia, and her favorite donut is red velvet donut. So on that, we'll turn it over to Tara.
Thanks, everybody. We do love to make sure that students are involved right when they get to campus, just like transfer students. We want to be sure they're connecting early on. So we do host a welcome weekend activity for them. It is called the Transfer Student Ice Cream Social. That takes place on Saturday of welcome weekend every year. Campbell is a great partner with us in that program. We had a great turnout last year and expecting one this year too. We just bring transfer students together. They get to have a little activity. They get to maybe connect with some other students who are also transfer students. Maybe they can exchange telephone numbers, things like that, to connect with one another on campus. And it is also hosted in part with Tau Sigma, which Tau Sigma is our Transfer Student Honor Society. We have about 50 members. We are in the midst of inviting our new class this year. And that is an opportunity for students who have scored within the top 25% of all of the transfer students within the semester in which they transfer. And so that scale kind of rotates, but we end up inviting about 300 students to join out of our transfer student population. And we tend to have about 20 people join per year. And so that organization is a great organization for transfer students because they may have been in some sort of an honor society in their community college, or at least know the benefits of having that on their resume. And that is a great reason for them to join. They often ask, what's the point of me joining? Number one, it's a great resume builder to show that not only are you a great student, but you also like to get involved in something else. It also helps connect them to community service because we do have a street dedicated to Tau Sigma located downtown. And we do street cleanups 3 times a year. And they do some social activities too. So that is a great way for them to connect with one another. And then we also know too that some transfer students come in and they think, oh, I've got college down. I don't really need to find new friends. I don't really need all of these other things. But in actuality, they do. And so we definitely encourage them to find one of our other student organizations and to connect with those. We have 325-ish student organizations. A great one to push them to, of course, is one tied to their academics. Another one, of course, we like to talk about is Tau Sigma, but not everyone can get in that. And so finding out what else might be of interest to them. And if they're still really stuck on, I don't know where to go, I'm transferring from OTC or something, and there were 3 or 4 student organizations, and now you're telling me I have 325 to choose from, that's really overwhelming. And so we have involvement ambassadors that we have trained to talk with students about what their interests are, what their academic pursuits are, and maybe just how they like to have fun and how they like to spend time together with others. And we try to connect them to student organizations through those involvement ambassadors. So that way they kind of know someone who can kind of give them the connection. And then also we've had some involvement ambassadors attend events or attend a meeting with the students so that they've got someone to go with as well.
Thank you, Terry, for that information. And by the way, when I first started here, Terry gave me lots of good information when I was the advisor for the chess club. So she was never irritated, very kind. So I appreciate that. But that's important. Also, making the students aware of the campus resources is also important. This is what Campbell will be discussing. Campbell Keel is the coordinator of the transfer initiatives in the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. Campbell has been in this role for 2 years and previously spent 3 years as the transfer advisor for the College of Business. Half of Campbell's job consists of advising and interacting with current and prospective transfer students, while the other half is faculty and staff facing, with creation and implementation of professional development opportunities, advising resources, and best practices for working with transfer students. Campbell loves spending time with her dog Baxter, loves to take him to the recruitment events, and her favorite donut is chocolate donut with chocolate icing and sprinkles. So Campbell, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nick. The sprinkles are very important, so I appreciate you spotlighting that. As Nick mentioned, my name is Campbell Keel. I am the coordinator of transfer initiatives, and spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a transfer initiative that I coordinate. So that particular initiative is National Transfer Student Week. National Transfer Student Week is really aimed towards raising awareness of campus resources because we have a lot of great campus resources for students, but transfer students can feel very intimidated trying to use those resources, and they often feel like they don't know enough about them. So 2 years ago, I started creating events for National Transfer Student Week, which happens during the 3rd week of every October. And to give you guys an idea of what National Transfer Student Week looks like, we had 5 events for all transfer students during last year's National Transfer Student Week. And those events spotlighted different resources on campus, including the Office of Student Engagement, shout out to Tara, and the Multicultural Resource Center, as well as the Office of Education Abroad. Nick, however, just talked about how much I love dogs, so I'm going to talk more about my favorite event from last year, which was Pause, a pet away worry and stress. So Pause was a collaborative event with the Counseling Center, and the Counseling Center and I had the opportunity to bring therapy dogs to the Counseling Center on a Tuesday afternoon. And I'm sure you guys are dying to know what those dogs looked like. So here we have them. We have Jasper, Lexi, and Bonnie, who were in the Counseling Center for about an hour and a half. We had a little less than 100 students come by to pet those dogs and to learn about the resources that the Counseling Center provides. Most of those students had never been to the Counseling Center before because, again, it can be pretty intimidating to learn about the Counseling Center and to go for the first time. But it ended up being a huge success because a lot of those students have come back to take advantage of the group counseling sessions or individual counseling sessions or any of the other resources that the Counseling Center provides. As much fun as those dogs are, though, my absolute favorite part of National Transfer Student Week has to be the student spotlights that we do. So every year I pick 6 transfer students and I interview them and I allow them the chance to tell their story. All 12 of those students that I've interviewed so far are incredible, but I had to pick Katie Cowan because Katie Cowan works in the Office of Admissions now with Bart and Ben. So it's a full circle moment today. Katie was actually the very first student I ever interviewed for National Transfer Student Week, and her interview is pretty similar to the ones that you'll see from the other 11 students. So Katie kind of talked a little bit about why she picked Missouri State, some of the pros and cons with that, some of the challenges and exciting things that happened as she moved through that transfer process. And then we always end the interviews by allowing the students to talk more about some advice that they would share for future transfer students. And at the very end, they have a chance to give a shout out to the person or people who helped them the most through that transfer process. And these spotlights get shared on the website, on social media, kind of all over the place throughout the week. And it allows those students to kind of have a celebration and recognition that they otherwise would never get to have. So if you want to read Katie's story and the other 11, you can find those on the Academic Advising and Transfer Center's blog. Also, throughout the year on the blog, you're going to find more information from me on National Transfer Student Week 2024, which will be October 21st through the 25th. But you'll hear more about that later from me. But for now, I'm going to pass it back to Nick to wrap things up for us today.
Okay, well, thanks. Appreciate that. Before we get to everybody's questions in the open setting here, Kristen, do we have any questions from chat that we need to cover?
No, just everybody wants to see cats in the Pause program. So Campbell, can you hook us up with cats as
I
well?
will do my best. I'm so sorry. I just picked dogs this time, but I will have some cats next time.
And then that was it.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone else that would like to ask one of our presenters stuff?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Nick. This is more on the kind of advising side of things. And so when you were going through the whole process and the the big daunting task of transferring to a 4-year university, would maybe Campbell be able to talk a little bit about just like the top 2 things you like to tell transfer students as they're going through the admissions process to kind of ease those nerves?
I'd be happy to. So the first thing I always do is actually related to Tara's because it can be really intimidating to go through all 325 student organizations. So if I know that a student is interested in something or they mention maybe chess club or something like that, I will make it a point to tell them about that organization, show them the Bear Link page and make sure that they know when the next meeting is or who the contact person is, because it's a lot easier for them to get involved if they already know what that next step will be. And the other thing I like to do, probably because I'm too detail oriented, I give them a checklist with items for what they need to do next and dates and deadlines. And it includes everything that I'm aware of, including financial aid stuff or admissions things. And I think most people kind of like having that to-do list there. So whether that's big or small, if you can do that for them, I think they'd really appreciate it. Does that answer your question, Caitlin?
Yeah, is there any way that like the to-do list that you use could be shareable or something?
I would love to, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks, Campbell.
Okay, anyone else with questions for our presenters? No? Going once, twice? Okay, well, if there's anything else, just email one of us here. I'd like to kick it back up to Ross. Ross, do you have something to wrap up with?
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Nick, and thanks for everyone for presenting important information on transfer students today. I know that I found it beneficial, and I'm sure all attendees did as well. Just one quick final reminder, if you have not yet entered your name and your department in the chat feature for Master Advisor Credit, please do so now. Otherwise, I hope to see many of you at our next advisor forum on Wednesday in the Student Union, room 314 from 12 to 1, where we continue our discussion on advising within an ethical framework. Until then, stay healthy, since I know there's several people who are not feeling their best. So I wish everyone good health, and I will see you again, hopefully on Wednesday. Take care. Bye.